Welcome to Talk and Ship, the Venture Asheville podcast, where we talk about issues and topics in entrepreneurship. If you're looking for our sister podcast, Ship Talkers, you're in the wrong place. That's our podcast about supply chain issues off the ports around the globe. Wrong ship. We're here to talk about entrepreneurship. Jay Walker, that's a new one.
Yeah, I like that one.
Usually dinghies and catamarans. I went for the shipping issues we're having lately. And who are we? We are the Venture Asheville team. Venture Asheville is the high-growth entrepreneurship initiative of the Economic Development Coalition for Asheville-Buncombe County. We build entrepreneurs and get startups funded. I'm Jeffrey Kaplan, this ship's captain, director of Venture Asheville, and lover of, ready for this one? Got a new one this week. Lover of, that's really loud, the Bic Grip Roller. I was short on material today, and this was right in front of me. I have two of them.
Two.
In my opinion, two Bic Grip Rollers. In my opinion, this is the optimal promotional pen. It comes in blue and black ink, and it's a roller ball, which I consider to be superior to ballpoint pens. It's convenient. It's mass produced, very cost effective and stylish. Good ink, good life on it. It's very smooth. You can't go wrong with this pen. That's what I'm loving this week.
Well, that's great. I love a good pen. I don't have a lot of strong opinions on pens, but I do love it when I always have a favorite pen, and I usually get them from a hotel, a cheap hotel. I don't know. I steal their notepads too.
You know, they
Well,
want you to.
steal.
They want you to
Yeah.
take those. Same with the shampoo and the conditioner and the soap.
Mm-hmm.
When it's branded, you take that home with you. It's all about the branding of the pens and the pads. They expect you to take them. Although you're not supposed to take the Bibles, so I hear. Anyway, with me, as always, is the wonderful, smart, talented, considerate, and creative Juliana Walker, our master of interactive media. We call her Jay Walker. We've had 8 episodes of this podcast out, and the most common feedback I get is people want more Jay Walker. Jay Walker, what's good with you? What's going on?
Things are doing well. Things are going well today. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Just had some lunch. Now I'm thinking about pens and stealing Bibles, which I think is probably a bad idea.
Shouldn't do it.
No. Yeah, I can't do that. But yeah, things are going really well. People want more jaywalk. I had no idea.
So next time you're at a hotel, look at the pen and tell me. You can text me, Slack me, email, whatever. Is it a rollerball or a ballpoint?
I'll let you know.
I don't mess with fountain pens.
And are they Bic pens? Bic Grip Roller pens.
Bic Grip Roller. I've got 2 here. If you ever want to borrow one, let me know. I will need it back.
I'll let you know.
Our guest today is Kate Pett, formerly the executive director of the Asheville City Schools, currently the executive director of Thrive Asheville. Kate and I recently met to get to know each other and found, I'd say, a fair bit of education was needed to introduce each other to what it is we do and why we do it of our respective organizations. For example, I'll pick on Thrive Asheville for a moment while Kate is nodding, waiting with apprehension what I'm about to say. The website states, Thrive Asheville is a civic infrastructure initiative modeled after multi-sector work in other successful cities. This is not reading from the website. This is my own Jeff thing. I need that explained to me like I'm 5, if you could. We'll get there. And like Thrive Asheville, Venture Asheville is often mischaracterized or sometimes misunderstood of what we do and how we do it. One example I'll give is people ask me all the time for an investment to write a check to their startup and have to tell them, no, we don't actually write a check. We manage an investor network, or we run a grants program, or we connect people to capital, but we're not sitting on a pile of cash that we can just, hey, good pitch, go for it. Here's some money. Good luck. So I thought it'd be a good time to bring Kate on the podcast and ask each other some questions. Thrive Asheville is leading some really impressive and important initiatives, and Kate Pett is just a delight. So let's jump in and talk some shit. Kate Pett, thank you for joining us on this warm fall day. Tell us, who are you?
Well, thank you, Jeff, for that nice introduction. And I'm so thrilled to be here because I am a nonprofit leader who is a student of entrepreneurship, I think. I'm really thinking a lot about how nonprofits can really take some pages from the entrepreneurial playbook to solve more problems in our community more quickly. So that's maybe, I know we'll get more into that when we talk about Thrive. Personally, I moved here in 2001 with my husband. We were living on the east side of North Carolina, kind of surrounded by hog farms and blueberry fields. And I kept coming here to Asheville as a tourist, of course, for the music and the food and the local culture. And when we made our life list of places to live, Asheville was right at the top. And so we moved here, and here's a true story about how Asheville's changed. When we came here for a weekend, a long weekend, a nonprofit director and a teacher could get a job in a day. We both got jobs in a day.
Real?
And then we bought a house in a weekend. Yeah, a house we could afford, a teacher and a nonprofit director. So things have really changed. And since then, as you mentioned, I've led the Asheville City Schools Foundation for more than a decade, which is a nonprofit that really seeks to fulfill the promise of public education and address racism and poverty and how those things prevent kids from succeeding. And now I lead the new nonprofit Thrive Asheville, which we're going to talk all about.
No,
and who are you, Jeff? I don't know enough about you. You can tell me about you?
I'm just, an anxious Jew from Miami. That's how I describe myself. Sometimes I get to laugh. Sometimes it doesn't. I'm glad Kate laughed. Thank you. I grew up in Florida, first generation Cuban American, Jewish Cuban American. Long part of my life was at the University of Florida, where I met my wife, got my master's degree in entrepreneurship. And that master's degree in entrepreneurship really showed me not just how you start a business and do your pitch and what to put in your business plan, all that kind of good stuff, but seeing the programs we would run, like our Women's Entrepreneurship Summit, our business plan competitions, our student incubator. And what really impacted me was our Disabled Veterans Program, where all you needed to get into our program was an idea for a business, a paragraph on paper. As long as you were honorably discharged, there's preference to Iraq and Afghani veterans. We still had even veterans from the Vietnam and Gulf Wars as well. You could come to our program. There was a 6-week online boot camp. Online course, an 8-day boot camp, and 6 months of mentorship. And seeing how people from that program is a really, really effective way to start their business from an idea, to go to be independent and support themselves. And it's really amazing is when they start hiring people and creating jobs, net new jobs. And it's not about independent wealth at that point. It's about community, upward mobility of a community, right? Community empowerment, individual empowerment. And that these folks are now able to, employ people, and those people can buy houses and buy cars and send their kids to school and do all kinds of great things. And it came from someone's dream. And so that getting a taste of that is super addictive, right? How do you let go after seeing people like live into their full purpose and then provide for others and all that good upward mobility. And it just, so that I've always wanted to be back in this kind of role, but I knew I needed more experience. And I don't want to say the air quotes, the real world, but industry, clinical experience before I can get back to the nonprofit ESO entrepreneur support organization side of it, which Venture Asheville finds itself in now. So I've worked in a handful of startups. I launched my own startup, mostly in the ed tech, pet tech space. Really enjoyed working here at Antherware in the custom software development, product development space. That was a blast. And when this job opened up, when Josh Dorfman decided to go over to the Collider to be their CEO, open up this role. And I tell people all the time, I could move to Asheville, and we moved here in 2016 because Venture Asheville existed. So because there was a city and county and public support for startups and high growth ventures, that meant someone like me with my background and my skill set would either be able to start a company or find a company to work with. And then ultimately, which is such a dream, to be able to do this work professionally as a full-time professional is phenomenal. And I've been in this role for over 3 years.
Nice. That's awesome.
That answers actually the next question I have, which is how did you get into this role? So mine was, I was following Josh Dorfman, who helped create this organization and build a foundation. And when he moved on to his next organization, it created a vacuum that I could step into. But Kate, how did you go from city schools? And I believe so. It's different though. I think you're the first director of Thrive Asheville, right?
It's true.
So do you consider yourself a founder?
That's such a good question. I think I would say I am a co-founder because the way that I got to this position was an amazing just being in the right place at the right time, because a group of community leaders were coming together regularly to talk about this challenge that they saw, which was that they identified sort of this gap in leadership in the community and felt like they needed to create something new that could really respond to these gaps in leadership that were preventing the community from working together effectively to solve big problems. And right at that time, I happened to be really feeling like I was reaching the end of what I could do at the Asheville City Schools Foundation. I'd been there for more than a decade. And, I think what I will tell people is that I came to this role sort of out of equal parts love of Asheville and frustration with Asheville, honestly. I just love this community. I've been really fortunate to live all over the country and in many places in the world. And I never really imagined that I would find a place that I felt so sort of committed to. But as it turns out, this is my home. This is where I raised my kids. This is where I think I'm going to take my last breath. And I believe that this community can do great things. I mean, that's my optimism. I believe that we have problems that are of a manageable size, and we have our community that is full of inspiring people and experts and thought leaders. But I feel frustrated with Asheville too, that despite these assets, we're not able to move the needle in some of our big challenges. And that's where I really got to after a decade with the Asheville City Schools Foundation, is that the work is so valuable and so meaningful. And I felt like I wanted to look outside of kind of a traditional nonprofit lens and be a part of conversations that were really happening across the community about how we could work across sectors more effectively to learn about our challenges and to address them. So as I said, I was just really starting to learn about how we could improve children's lives specifically by working across sectors with local government, business, and the education sector, at the same time that this group of leaders was getting together to talk about this same challenge that our echo chambers and our siloed approaches were preventing us from making progress. So I was really honored to be asked to lead Thrive Asheville. And so I would share the founder role with Kim McGuire, who is the person who's really pulled this train the longest and really who I think of as the original founder of this effort.
It's what I love about the story is it's you could swap out Thrive Asheville for Venture Asheville. And it's a lot of this, we hear the same exact values in your statement, solving different problems. So for example, it brings up my favorite quote of all time, which is all birds fly south for winter, but the ones who fly in formation get there faster and look better doing it. Right. And that's what Thrive Asheville is doing for the problems, which we'll address in a moment. And we do that in the startup ecosystem world. And one more similar thing you said is about the silos, and we're siloed, but also resource rich. So as I'm writing grant applications, this new turn of phrase I'm using is our entrepreneurial ecosystem is reflective of the WNC geography. It's very resource rich, but hard to navigate.
Oh, that's great.
Right. So we've got these hollers and valleys and mountains and, rivers and streams and everything else. It's amazing to be here. Right. And there's so many activities, and same way in the business community, right? Between us and all the partners. I mean, it's a full-time job just keeping up with what everyone's doing at events you can go to and programs to be a part of. But that makes, and I believe that with more density, everyone being on the same page, sheet of music or on the same page, that I can speak about founders for a moment. I believe a founder could work much faster and more effectively if all the resources were in one place. If there's more collaboration and more sharing of assets to the benefit of our founders, we could have a much more impactful and effective ecosystem.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so, this piece about getting people together is so critical. I think what's interesting and maybe a little bit different that Thrive Asheville is trying to do is that I think we recognize that these complex problems we're trying to address in our community require us to really work across lines of difference. That we really have to engage people across sectors, across race, and across expertise. That a challenging problem like housing that we all care about. We're all so concerned. We see the consequences, the negative consequences across all kinds of sectors for, the affordable housing crisis that we're dealing with. But we have to actually solve that problem sort of at the same time that we're addressing other problems like economic opportunity and transportation and zoning. And so while I think Thrive Asheville is a convener and a backbone for these efforts, we kind of recognize that actually people might be in different spaces and working in different desks at different times, but somehow we need this thread that connects us so that we can pull in the same direction.
So let's follow that a little more. So that's the nexus of Thrive, is to be this convening, almost neutral third party to get everybody in the same room to workshop these issues. So if you look at the societal issues we're facing, especially in Asheville, which seems to be a microcosm of our nation, our universe, right?
Absolutely.
How do you prioritize those, and what actually are you working on right now? Or let me not go there. What have you done to date? Because you mentioned housing, and that's one of your prior initiatives.
Well, I'll just back up to sort of address the first part of that question, which is that, again, we really looked around the country at how are other cities solving these problems? Because to your point, Asheville is like so many places in the country. We're growing rapidly. We're experiencing change. And simultaneously, we're really experiencing sort of a historic level of division. And kind of within the same community, separate realities that are making it difficult to solve problems because we can't even decide on the problem, let alone the solution. So the first part of Thrive's work is, as you said, to really convene people around these issues and to identify issues where the problems could be solved with better collaboration. So these aren't just any problems, but problems where what is really needed is kind of this backbone support to move it ahead. But one of the first challenges we know is that we have to have people learn and come to a shared understanding of what the challenges are, and then build new relationships so that they can work together. So rather than saying that Thrive is a specific program or issue, we really say that Thrive is an approach to problem solving complex community challenges, and it's really a cycle of work that we repeat. So starting with our housing work, for example, we convened a diverse group of leaders who happen to be our board of directors, who represent business and healthcare and higher education and community advocacy and local government. And those folks, we kind of talked about, well, what are problems in our community that could be solved through collaboration, and what are missed opportunities that our community could take advantage of if we had just this little bit of civic infrastructure, kind of collective connective glue that holds us together. And what we saw is that right now, each year, millions of dollars of funds that could be used for housing are leaving our community. People know these as what used to be called Section 8 and now are called Housing Choice Vouchers. And for a variety of reasons, we weren't taking advantage of these millions of dollars every year. So Thrive convened partners to learn about great models, to study the opportunity to adapt practices from other places, and was pretty quickly with our partners at the city and the housing authority able to stand up a model that's highly cost effective and has helped 38 families move into neighborhoods that better meet their needs.
Yeah, we got to go back a second, because you started off by talking about the current voucher is formerly Section 8. And what I find so fascinating about the way you're solving the problem and convening people around what may or may not be on other people's priorities list, might be higher for some than others, you start with a data point. And another quote we love comes from our friends at Growth X Capital in Nashville, Tennessee. And they say, and we teach this in our product market fit accelerator, you don't bring feelings to a data fight.
Love that.
So I don't care if this is a priority for you, or you've experienced it yourself, or it's not on your radar at all. Here's the deal. Millions of dollars are not being claimed that could be going to our local community, our local landlords, right? that are federal dollars that we're not taking advantage of. So you start with this big, hairy, scary pain point, and it's unemotional. It's lost revenue.
Exactly.
Then you add in the personal story, and then you talk about the families. And by the end of that, people should be, lining up to work with you and figure out how do we reclaim, right, these lost, I don't want to say wages, but this lost federal dollars that we should have in our community. So what did you guys come up with? And can you talk through a little bit about what the model is of from convening, problem solving to producing some kind of product?
Yeah. So as you said, this has this really big, hairy pain point, which is that there's all this tremendous financial resource that's being left on the table each year when we need it so desperately in this community. And another, I guess I'll say that another pain point that really informed this particular program is that actually my friend Scott Dedman at Mountain Housing Opportunities says, we're not going to be able to build our way out of this crisis. What is intuitive to people is that we solve the affordable housing crisis by just building more houses. Well, really, that's so long-term and the crisis is right now. So how do we really leverage the shortest opportunity to get people where they need to be? So we looked around the country for great models. We found this program in Seattle, which is yielding tremendous results. Raj Chetty from Harvard says it's the best bang for the buck, best bang for your buck in social investment of any, because actually providing people with access to high opportunity neighborhoods is the single greatest lever that we have to produce social mobility. So we convened landlords and asked them, why won't you take these housing choice vouchers? Why are you leaving this steady source of money on the table? And we learned from them that they really had three problems. They found the time that it takes to go through the process expensive. It took time. It was bureaucratic and unfriendly, difficult to understand. So there was one problem with the bureaucracy. There was another problem that the federal reimbursement rates didn't match the market rate. So it was actually costing landlords money. And so, of course, these are small business owners, really. And so small business owners, of course, couldn't afford to take a loss on every property they had. And the last sort of impediment was that they had this perceived risk that voucher holders weren't ready to be the kind of tenants that they wanted. Then we talked with tenant advocates, kind of had a similar approach with our tenant advocates. What do tenants need to be successful? And they said, this is a huge move for tenants to move from public housing communities into neighborhoods where they're removed from their social networks. And they need some coaching and support, not all of them, but some of them. So we matched those local needs with this program and designed what we think is kind of a comprehensive solution, which provides financial incentives to landlords. So landlords don't have to take a personal hit to do what's right. We provide indemnification so that the risk that they're taking is shared with the community, $10,000 worth of indemnification over 3 years. And we provide support for them to navigate this complex bureaucratic system so they can get through it really quickly and find a great tenant. And then we also offer tenants access to coaches who are culturally competent, really understand the challenges, and are really right there for them as they need them to be successful in new settings.
It's unbelievable. So you've already placed 30 families, and I imagine this is going to continue on, and it's not like it was a one-time program. So I'm gonna go back to my question list. And so when we talk about the coaches and the program and the assets you've created, who funds you? Like, who is Thrive accountable to?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Well, that particular program is funded with city dollars, private donors, and grantors, really the whole range of folks. So right now, Thrive has a small group of donors and grantors. Sort of, again, we're trying to do things differently. Not only are we trying to create innovative programming, but we're trying to create an innovative organizational structure. And so traditional nonprofit fundraising is really an appeal to as many people as you can. It's kind of open the doors and try and bring in as much as you can, but that really requires a whole layer of fundraising infrastructure that's expensive. And that really eats into the bottom line. So Thrive's goal is to have a smaller group of investors who we can keep really close to us, who are attached to our results, who hold us accountable for actually creating change, and who also understand, though, that to create innovation, we also have to take risks. And this is something in nonprofits that's really discouraged and really perhaps different from the entrepreneurial.
That's a cultural shift for sure.
It is, because for some reason, people who donate and support social benefit work want guaranteed results, when in fact, this work is really hard. And to do it in new ways and respond to new challenges, nonprofits need to take risks, just like our entrepreneurial sector. And we actually need to be incentivized to get out there and try new things. But we need donors who understand that and who are willing to say, yeah, we're gonna try this crazy new idea that's never happened in Asheville before, and see how it goes, and really invest in the learning process with us. So we're keeping our donor pool small, but we're definitely looking for donors who will really be a part of that kind of bringing that kind of innovative, almost entrepreneurial thinking to the nonprofit sector.
So I'm going to ask a question I didn't prep you for. If I wanted to donate, would you say, Jeff, no thanks, I don't want to. If I was going to donate a check to you guys, would you say, nah, not interested? You don't have like a donation link on your website. Like there is I don't want to say a vetting process, but you're being very intentional about who you're bringing in. I imagine it's not like, yeah, you'll take my $100 check. It's probably a higher level to get into the system.
Jeff, we would take your $100 check, partly just because it's you. No, we would take anyone's $100 check, and we do, and we, we're really committed to equity, and we think everyone has a stake, and people at all levels can get this kind of change. But we would, if you wanted to donate to us, we would love it if you would give me a call and let me have a cup of coffee with you and talk to you about what you're looking for and explain to you, honestly, what we have to offer and what we're really asking you to become a part of. So that's really how we'd like to engage with our donors.
I guess that's what I meant to say, that me just writing you a check or clicking a donate link is very transactional, and you don't have a transactional relationship with your donors. It is a relationship-based donor fundraising model.
Yes. And, we really also think that our donors have great ideas. We think that we have donors who are business sector leaders who really get what's happening here and really share frustrations and concerns and want to see new ideas and understand that takes some time, that we're really investing in creating something new here that will help our whole city work better. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll share that who we're accountable to.
Yeah.
We're a public-private partnership, the triple P. And me personally, Jeff, I'm accountable to Clark Duncan, the executive director of the Economic Development Coalition, and Kate Kramer, CEO of the Chamber, and therefore our two boards, the Chamber Board and the EDC Board, which are made up of really top-notch people, leaders in the community, truly most of the business community. Economic development's a little different. You have some of the public utilities and public services folks there too, and the city manager, county manager, the mayor. But who funds us is we do a little bit of our own fundraising. So when there's events or programs like the Venture 15, our award-winning showcase where we highlight the fastest growing companies and hand out awards for Mentor of the Year, Investor of the Year, Entrepreneur of the Year. Like that's like us going out there and hustling to sell tickets, to sell sponsorships, to throw a great event. And we do it in a way that actually brings a little bit of revenue back to our program that then supports things like our mentorship program, our founder luncheons, our relationship building, our grants programs. We're also funded through the AVL 5x5 campaign, which funds the EDC itself. So the public-private partnership component here is the city and county each put in an allotment every year, and it's a 5-year agreement. And then the Chamber and EDC jointly fundraise that greater part of it, which is we call the 5x5 campaign. And it's 5 years, 5 goals for one region. And those goals, we're one of them. Fast tracking startups is a goal. Business retention expansion is a goal. Inclusive hiring is a goal. And then and then along those goals, we're all free to create our own earned income strategies or do our own fundraising, whether it's like my colleagues, you may have heard the Tiara and Samantha episode, and they're funded by the Golden Leaf Foundation. So that's who we end up being accountable to. But I tell folks all the time, like, really, we're accountable to the public, like the city and the county. You know, they're 40% of the whole EDC budget, maybe a little 35%, maybe something like that. And we get our small sliver of that. So like I work for the people of Buncombe County and even Haywood County and city of Asheville. So when people say, "Oh, thanks for taking time to meet," it's like literally I have to. I'm paid to by the city and county to meet you and talk to you about your business idea, and it's really it's a privilege. It's a dream to get to do this as a full-time professional.
Yeah.
So looking back at your time at Thrive, you're going on 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, we started sort of very kind of small partish time-ish in the summer of 2019. So just over 2 years. Okay.
You came out the gates, I won't say addressing the affordability and affordable housing crisis that we're facing. Clearly, you've got some early success. Are there any other successes along the way that you want to talk about? Maybe are there people you brought to the table that you never thought would want to be a part of Thrive, or relationships you've built, or connections maybe that have come out of just people getting to know each other through Thrive? Have those led to relationships in other communities?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think, I'm super excited about this new work that we're doing in sustainable tourism, but and I think that has some really unexpected partners, but I'm also really excited about something that we did in the 2020 election, which we haven't talked a lot about, but we looked around leading up to the 2020 election, and you mentioned at the top of this program that Thrive is a civic infrastructure initiative. So civic infrastructure, explaining it to you like your 5-year-old, infrastructure is roads and bridges, and civic infrastructure is the relationships that we build to work together. They're all the ways in which we establish organizations and institutions and give residents opportunities to interact with those and interact with each other. So one of the most important ways, obviously, that we strengthen our civic infrastructure is by participating in elections. And, coming up to the 2020 election, again, our group of leaders said, we know that this community cares about our leadership, but we continue to have, lackluster voter participation. What can we do about it? So we convened all these fantastic organizations like Democracy NC and the League of Women Voters and many others, and said, what's missing here? And what we heard from them was that, what we heard from Black and Brown leaders was that too often the spokespeople aren't Black and Brown leaders themselves. They're not local leaders talking with other folks in the community about how to vote and why it's important. So really quickly, we were able to put together a video campaign that amplified the voices of our Black and Brown leaders to talk about why to vote and how to vote. And those videos were seen over 50,000 times in 5 weeks leading up to the election. And there were lots of reasons that voting turnout increased in our 2020 election, but the group that increased the most was Black and Brown voters in Asheville, of all of our different groups. And so we'd like to think that the collective work of all of those folks, when they were organized, had a big part in that success. How about you? I'm curious about what you would say are some of your successes.
I'll talk about that in a second. How much time do you have? We can go to, I want to address the 50,000 views and put that in context to the size of our Black and Brown population in Asheville, which I believe estimates are now saying is like 12%. All right, and we're a city of 95,000 people. Let's make it easy math. Let's round up to 100,000 people and say 12%.
Yeah.
That's 12,000 people.
Yeah.
Right? That meant everybody would have potentially 50,000 views times 12,000 people is 12, 24, 36. On average, 4 views per person of color in our community.
Yeah, yeah. And, again, this was like the brilliance of being kind of the backbone, being able to stand in the background and put the brilliance of all these people in the front. So Aisha Adams Media, key player, put together she and her husband, Raph, put together this beautiful video series, and all of the partners agreed to really this coordinated campaign where we would all activate all of our platforms to really push this content into the community. And it was truly just a great collective success.
Yeah, Aisha with Aisha Adams Media Group is one of our founders in Elevate. We brought her in, I think, early this year, early 2021, to go through our mentorship program, and she's been phenomenal. We're so thrilled for her. So what are some of our successes? Well, most recently, if you look at last week, and we came back from Nashville, Tennessee, at the International Economic Development Council Conference. There's 4 countries represented. And we returned with this neat little trophy, this plaque, I guess. What do you call it? It's a plaque. Yeah, Juliana, help me out. What am I looking at here?
Beautiful plaque with little
That's a plaque.
embossed.
Gorgeous.
I think it's a glass background.
Very shiny, very shiny.
Yeah, so that's I'm so thrilled to receive the recognition from IEDC that this startup initiative, this IEDC, you're talking about things like how to recruit a factory to your town, right? The old school buffalo hunting, site selection. Not that that's not an important part of economic development, but what we're doing, we're really out there. We are really on the fringes to be throwing this party for our ecosystem every year. And I say, we get all the credit, but it's not really fair to do that. We hold a mirror up to our ecosystem, right? We say, send us your data. We're going to put the results together, and we can share things like the lifetime revenues of those 15 companies last year is over $100 million. That's over $100 million new dollars to our community. And the average age of those companies is 3.8 years old.
Wow.
So you put that in context here. So people divide, 100 million by 15. Your average company is a couple $1 million. But these are 3-year-old companies, 4-year-old companies. These aren't like legacy generation family businesses that have been handed down. This is, brand new energy, brand new companies. And we help really quantify the impact of our startups in our community. But one I do want to talk about is something we started in 2018 called the Asheville Startup Road Trip, where we found, well, for example, here's like a data point that keeps me up at night and bugs me. Last year, our angel group, the Asheville Angels, invested $500,000 in startups, which is decent for, the number of investors, and these are $10,000, $15,000 checks across a bunch of people a bunch of times. $0 of that went to Asheville startups. Meanwhile, Asheville startups in our program raised $13 million last year, and none of it came from Asheville investors. So we're seeing this.
What does that say to you? I need to know more. What does that say to you?
I still haven't digested all of it. But what we started doing was knowing that for whatever reason, the fund thesis or the product market fit, the capital requirements, maybe companies are too early, too late, it's not the right fit, they're not the right capital for our stage of business. We can dig into all those details. But we started a startup road trip where we pack founders in a van and drive across the state, or we'll drive to Atlanta and Nashville and Knoxville and Chattanooga and Raleigh, Durham, Cary, Charlotte, Greensboro, Winston-Salem. And we show up in these communities, we get a ballroom or we go to a co-working space and we host a pitch event. In the first year we did this, we spent $2,000 of our budget. Our budget's like $40,000. So it's, it's that 5% of our budget on one program. And is that 5? I'm get the numbers wrong. It doesn't matter. Anyway, $2,000 of our budget. Public-private partnerships are using a portion of your tax dollars to rent a bus and have these pitch events in different cities across the state. And that $2,000 brought back $1.4 million in investment in our startups from the first year. So it's 700x ROI. We're all thrilled, tickled pink. And those are the kind of things that I feel like is a sweet spot. What we bring to the ecosystem, other than being convener like Thrive, is where are those exponential returns that we can produce for founders to help, leveraging our privilege and our status across the state and the region to get the right people in the right room to solve problems. Our problems are about the business life cycle and entrepreneurship, and making sure that the ecosystem is supporting founders to create these businesses so they can do well. So that's why I feel so much kinship towards you, Kate, and the work you're doing.
Yeah. Well, and I just love I love that you kind of calling out that idea about how can we leverage these small amounts of money to have big change. And so I think the magic ingredient in there is something about really understanding that this convening has great power. Bringing the right people into the room is so powerful and often not terribly expensive. But it requires that you have somebody who can kind of do that, kind of stepping back, examining the whole ecosystem, making the connections, building the relationships that make coming into the room together possible. So yeah, we share a lot there.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what's coming next for you all with your sustainable tourism initiative.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this new initiative. So as Thrive does, we, identified, what's a challenge in our community that could be solved by collaboration. And one of the challenges is sort of a divisive environment around this really powerful economic engine, tourism, the force that brought me to this city.
Likewise.
Sure. Right? That fuels so much creativity, that supports so many great amenities in our community. And yet this sense of divisiveness and this lack of shared understanding about how it could be leveraged to benefit our community means that we can't tap into the full potential. So we are replicating a model, as Thrive also likes to do. The North Carolina Leadership Forum has been taking on divisive issues statewide, bringing together people who really disagree and have different perspectives.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah, to actually work together over 5 sessions to kind of craft a common agenda. So that's what we started on September 22nd. We brought together 34 leaders, a balanced group of folks, people who kind of identify themselves as tourism sector leaders with those who might be more on the side of community advocate. They're highly represented by race and expertise. And we dug in. We started talking about tough issues. What are the concerns around tourism? What do we value about tourism? And what are the actions that we want to learn about this year that could potentially really help the whole community buy into tourism in a way because it really expands the benefits to more people. So super excited about it. And you asked a question about, who are some of the partners you're happy you brought to the table. I love that this effort is led by a steering committee that includes Katie Button from Curate Restaurants and Vic Isley from Explore Asheville and Jay Hackett from Grind Asheville and Shanika Smith, our vice mayor.
Yeah.
And just really a whole diversity of folks, including Aisha Adams, my partner always in designing this. So just a great diversity of folks. So we're working on that hard this year. And by the end of this year, the community should expect Thrive to come forward with some new ideas about how we could get some demonstration projects off the ground to see more people benefit from tourism.
All right, I'm gonna take my opportunity to pitch you an idea.
Great. Tell me all about it. Yeah.
So for I think a year now, to start going back to restaurants, maybe less, 6 months we'll call it. I've been running a guerrilla. I'm getting whispery because I want to get everyone to know. I run a guerrilla marketing campaign.
Okay.
So I call a restaurant. I don't use OpenTable. I call the restaurant to make a reservation, and they tell me, "Oh, sorry, we're fully booked until 9:30, or we can't get you in until next week." Someone said to me, "Oh gosh, it's the busiest weekend in Nashville." It seems like every weekend is the busiest weekend in Nashville. They say, "Oh, it's the busiest weekend. I'm sorry, you should have called a month ago." And then my follow-up question is, "Sorry, do you guys reserve tables for locals?" And they say, "What?" I said, "Yeah. Do you guys have like a hotline or like is there a special reservation line for your locals?" And they always go, "No, we don't." Do other restaurants do that? And I go, "Why don't you be the first?" So that's the idea, is like, if it's not a section of the restaurant, if like there's a separate reservation line, or there was certain tables reserved for locals, because like you, right? We moved here for the food and drink scene and the outdoors, right? Those two things bring everybody to Asheville. You stay for one of those. They always rank in your top 2 when you ask somebody, "Why'd you come here?" I think I've talked about this in 2 other episodes. this is my new very guerrilla planet. I don't know if it's really catching on. Should this be the main thrust of Thrive Asheville Sustainable Tourism Initiative? I don't know, but maybe it could be a piece.
I'm so with you, Jeff, because, you know, our goal is to create these kind of win-wins. And one of the things that folks said is a concern was that locals were locked out of amenities that we were creating for folks who were visiting us. So, and actually even big tourism folks will say that one of the ways to preserve local buy-in is to have special ways that locals can get in. So I've written that down, and you can expect to see it in the agenda,
Awesome.
John.
You know, I'm gonna go
What's
on this
new with
riff.
you? Okay.
I'm not done yet. Sorry, Kate. Now I'm all worked up. I got a couple of things I want to bring up. All right. So my favorite restaurant in town since before moving here was Bouchon. Bouchon. And when they opened their second location, they chose Haw Creek with better parking, and they've got this great indoor, outdoor, really relaxing space, and it's made to feel like you can lounge there and spend all day there. But the effort that the business owner had to make a local friendly environment was he had to go to a residential neighborhood. I think he found an old church. Like, that's a huge amount of effort. And to me, it adds so much more love to the restaurant and the staff and the owners to say they would go that far to keep their patrons really happy. And my other favorite restaurant is Vinny's. Drive by it all the time.
Yeah.
When my wife and I decided to move here, we had dinner at Vinny's. We're talking to the wait staff. It was at the end of the night, and we're like, yeah, my wife got a job offer. And they were like, young college kids. It's like, what's it like living here? What's it like growing up here? And we really got the feel. And then we decided, okay, we're going to move here. And you drive by Vinny's, there's always a line all the way down the street, like to the Valvoline. Like, it's just, it keeps going and going. Same thing, you know, and that should be a place, I believe, that's welcoming of locals. And it is, not that it isn't, but it's hard to get in. So it's reminiscent of the famous Yogi Berra quote that, what does he say? Nobody goes there anymore. It's too busy.
What do you think about Smoky Park? I think it's pretty bold what Smoky Park is doing to continue to create a space for locals, right? So exciting. And it's packed. It's totally working, right? Like, I mean, I go there, and now Smoky Park is the place to be because people feel so excited about being with other folks from the community.
So if our listeners don't know, can you share what Smoky Park's strategy is?
Yeah, Smoky Park has declared, you know, they become a membership restaurant. I'm probably getting the terminology wrong, so help me out, Jeff. But
you have to get in with your driver. First, you need a driver's license that says you live in North Carolina to go
That's
there.
right. Yeah.
And if you came up from Florida, sorry, you can't get in unless you're with somebody from North Carolina.
That's right.
So they didn't go as far as to say we're locals only, because it does embrace the state. But it's and then, so the way they validate that is through the membership. You pay $1, you're in their system as a member. But to qualify as a member, you have to be a North Carolina resident. I love it. I think it's brilliant.
It is brilliant. And I think it's so exciting and affirming because, again, like what we've heard in this first session is, you know, locals love some of the things that are happening in our community, but they want to be able to continue to participate in them. And so tourism doesn't serve our community if it locks locals out. So how do we continue to make sure that locals get to really enjoy these great amenities? So are you going to tell me what's happening new over there with you at some point? What's coming up?
So so we're recording this mid-October. In a month, I'll be having, God willing, a child. So that's my main focus in the future. It'll be expecting a girl in November. So that can be pretty busy. And then when I return from that, we'll have the 2021 Venture 15 and Venture Asheville Honors, which will be a big party at the Orange Peel on December 16th. And then in February, we're launching something, Kate, you might be a great candidate for. We're launching the Corporate Entrepreneurship Institute. So we're creating an 8-week course that consists of 4 hours of classroom time a week. And we're looking for nonprofit leaders and people working at our larger organizations in our community to teach them how to be more entrepreneurial. We don't want people to leave their organizations and start a business. It's not about like, here's how you create a startup and run with it. But how do you work as an intrapreneur, is another way to put it, right? How do you take the qualities of being an entrepreneur, which is leveraging resources to create value, creative problem solving, tenacity, opportunity analysis, network building and leveraging, and how do you do your job better?
Mm-hmm.
Or how do you make your organization more competitive? We expect there to be 3 outcomes of each. So let me also mention that to be in the program, you have to have a project you're working on. So if you come to us from, let's pick on, I want to say Thrive. That one's too easy.
Thrive Asheville, yeah, right.
Right. So Thrive Asheville comes, you have to work on an internal initiative every week you're there. So the first week, you learn how to do an entrepreneurial audit. You learn how to do, a soup to nuts overview of your organization. Identify where influence exists, what opportunities exist, what new products can you make with existing items on the shelf, what new markets can you access with existing products on the shelf, or how do you realign resources to create more value, and then the last idea is, or maybe it's through a reconfiguring of process or protocol, being really innovative internally, you can reduce your bottom line. And so the first hour is a lecture that I'll lead. Second hour is a guest lecture. In the last 2 hours of each session, you have to do work. It's workshops, it's experiential education, activities. So you're not just coming to class and listening and leaving. You have to do work to be in good standing. Kate, would love to have you in the program in February.
I'm sold. That sounds amazing. And I would love to be, first of all, look forward to the learning, and also would love the opportunity to engage more with folks about problem solving, because I think that one of the interesting things about trying to be kind of entrepreneurial in the nonprofit space is all the disincentives for doing that to nonprofits. Taking risks, being highly accountable, short-term results, iterating, all of those things. In many ways, there's built-in disincentives for nonprofits. So I would love to learn. I'm there. Sign me up, Jeff. It's awesome.
We will. Great.
What a great service.
Thanks so much. Let me kick it over to our master of interactive media, Jay Walker. Juliana, I hope you learned something today. Do you have any questions for Kate or myself?
I have learned so much, and especially the sustainable tourism has been very interesting because, we're here at the visitor center. That's where our offices are. And so like today I came back from lunch and can barely find a parking spot. It's just so packed. So it's really interesting to hear what you're doing over there. You're doing so much, but wow, you have a lot on your plate. But you seem to be balancing it very well.
And I think, isn't Tiara Wilkie on your committee? Tiara
Wilkie is on the cohort in Sustainable Tourism. Yeah.
And she's one of our coworkers. She was on the IHP episode we did, quickly becoming Ash famous.
Very quickly on the cover of the new Equity is Everything.
Oh, yeah. Equity over everything.
That's what it's called. Equity over everything.
Equity over everything. We'll have to do an episode with Aisha to talk about equity over everything.
Yeah, we will.
Kate Pett, Executive Director of Thrive Asheville, thank you so much for taking time and talking ship with us. Good luck on the Sustainable Tourism Initiative. We're really excited to follow along and see what comes out of it. And with that, I guess, Jay Walker, you want to play the end music and wrap this episode up?
Yep, I'll play it right now.
Thank you both.